They laughed at the country bumpkin in the big city, but when he said his last name, everyone fell silent. Robert Thompson wiped the sweat from his brow with a handkerchief yellowed by time as he waited on the helipad of the most modern building in New York City. His simple clothes and faded straw hat contrasted with the luxurious surroundings. The pilot, Tyler, couldn't stop laughing while discreetly pointing at the gentleman. The two flight attendants, Jessica and Ashley, whispered malicious comments to each other about this man who was clearly in the wrong place. "Look at this one," murmured Ashley to her colleague. "He must have gotten lost coming from the farmer's market." Jessica covered her mouth to stifle a laugh. "Someone should tell him this isn't a bus stop." Tyler approached the group, still smiling. "Did you see? The old man must be looking for gardening work. He probably can't even read properly." Robert pretended not to hear, but each word was like a dagger to his heart. This wasn't the first time he had faced this kind of situation, but today was different. Today he needed to be there, no matter how painful it was. The gentleman looked at the crumpled paper in his hands, confirming the address once more. This was indeed the place. The office of Thompson and Associates was on the top floor of that building, and he had a meeting scheduled with the company's current president. "I think we should call security," suggested Jessica, looking at Robert with disdain. "These kinds of people can be dangerous." "Let me go talk to him," said Tyler, adjusting his uniform with an air of superiority. The pilot approached Robert with firm steps and an authoritative expression. "Hey, sir," he called, clapping his hands to get attention. "Are you lost? This is a restricted area, only for executives and important business people." Robert raised his tired eyes and replied in a calm voice, "I have a meeting scheduled." The laughter intensified. Ashley came closer, looking Robert up and down. "A meeting?" she repeated, incredulous. "With who? The building janitor?" "With Dr. William Thompson," replied Robert, maintaining his dignity despite the humiliation. Tyler let out a loud laugh. "Oh, of course. Dr. William, one of the most influential business people in the country, is going to meet with—" He stopped, looking at Robert's clothes. "With that." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Robert took a deep breath. This situation was becoming more difficult than he had imagined. He had avoided that world for 40 years precisely to not face this kind of embarrassment again. "Maybe it would be better if you left," suggested Jessica, trying to sound kind but failing miserably. "This kind of joke can get you in serious trouble. Pretending to have meetings with important people is a crime." "It's not a joke," insisted Robert, his voice trembling slightly. "I really do have a meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock. Ashley looked at the expensive watch on her wrist. "It's 10:15. If it were true, they would have called looking for you by now." At that moment, a white-haired lady came out of the elevator carrying cleaning supplies. Mrs. Patricia had worked in that building for over 30 years and knew every corner of the place. When her eyes met Robert's, she stopped suddenly, as if she had seen a ghost. "My God," she murmured, dropping the bucket she was carrying. The noise caught everyone's attention. Patricia slowly approached Robert, her eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Robert, is it really you?" The gentleman smiled for the first time since he had arrived there. "Hi, Patricia. How are you?" The woman began to cry, completely ignoring the curious looks from the others. "I always knew you would come back one day. I always held on to hope." Tyler, Jessica, and Ashley exchanged confused glances. How did that cleaning lady know the country bumpkin? "Patricia," said Robert gently, "do you still work for William?" "Yes, Mr. Robert. He's upstairs in an important meeting. He's very nervous today." "I imagine he would be," replied Robert, a tone of sadness in his voice. Jessica couldn't contain herself. "Excuse me, but how do you know this gentleman?" Patricia turned to her with an expression of indignation that no one expected to see from a simple cleaning employee. "This gentleman," she repeated, raising her voice. "This is the most important person who has ever set foot in this building, young lady. You don't know who you're talking to." Tyler laughed nervously. "Mrs. Patricia, you're confused. This is some country bumpkin who showed up here saying he has a meeting with Dr. William. Country bumpkin? Patricia was visibly irritated now. You are ignorant. This man... Patricia, interrupted Robert softly, it's not necessary. Let it go. No, Mr. Robert, they need to know who you are. The tension in the air was palpable. Tyler, trying to regain control of the situation, addressed Robert again. Look, sir, whoever you are, I need to see some identification. I can't let just anyone go up to Dr. Williams' office. Robert sighed and pulled a time-worn leather wallet from his pocket. Tyler took the document and began to read aloud. Robert Thompson. His voice began to falter. Born in... The receptionist stopped speaking. His hands began to tremble as he looked at the document. Jessica and Ashley moved closer, curious. What is it, Tyler? Asked Ashley. What's the matter? Tyler couldn't speak. His eyes alternated between the document and Robert's face. Jessica took the ID from his hands and read it. The silence that followed was deafening. Ashley pulled the document from her colleague's hands, and her eyes widened as she saw the full name. Thompson, murmured Jessica, her voice almost a whisper. Robert watched the reaction of the three in silence. There was no satisfaction on his face, only a deep sadness. Now do you understand, said Patricia, still emotional. This is Robert Thompson, the true owner of all this. Tyler felt his legs go weak. The Thompson family was a legend in New York City. They had built hospitals, schools, there was an avenue named after the family, and he had spent the last 15 minutes humiliating the patriarch of that family. Mr. Thompson, began Ashley, her voice trembling. No need to say anything, replied Robert, putting away his ID. I understand. You judged by appearances. It happens. Jessica felt like she was going to faint. She had worked at that company for 5 years and knew exactly who the Thompson family was. She knew the company's founder had mysteriously disappeared 40 years ago, leaving everything in the hands of his younger brother. But sir, why did you never come back? Asked Tyler, trying to process the situation. I had my reasons, Robert replied simply. Patricia moved closer to him. Mr. Robert, you need to know, things aren't going well upstairs. Dr. William is desperate. The company. I know, Patricia. That's why I'm here. At that moment, Tyler's phone rang. It was from Dr. Williams' office. With hands still shaking, he answered. Hello? Yes, Dr. William. No, sir, no one has asked for you yet. What? Robert Thompson? Yes, sir, he is here. Tyler hung up the phone and looked at Robert with an expression of pure dread. Dr. William is asking for you to come up immediately. He said he's been waiting 40 years for this meeting. Robert nodded and headed for the elevator. Before entering, he turned to the three who had humiliated him. Tyler, Jessica, Ashley. I hold no grudges. We all judge by appearances sometimes. That doesn't make us bad people. Robert's words left the three of them even more devastated. His kindness, after the humiliation they had put him through, was almost unbearable. When the elevator doors closed, Tyler leaned against the wall, running his hands over his face. What have we done? He murmured. What the hell have we done? Patricia shook her head, gathering her cleaning supplies. You humiliated the most dignified man I've ever known, a man who has saved hundreds of families in this city. But how? Jessica began. Why was he dressed like that? Because Mr. Robert never cared about appearances, Patricia explained. He was always simple, even when he was the richest man in New York City. When he disappeared, many good people lost their jobs. Things changed a lot after he left. In the elevator, Robert watched the numbers rise slowly. Each floor brought him closer to a meeting he had avoided for 4 decades. His hands were sweaty and his heart was racing. He hadn't lied to Patricia. He truly knew about the company's financial situation. Over the past 2 years, he had received secret reports from loyal employees who still remembered him. Thompson and Associates was on the brink of bankruptcy, and William, his nephew, was desperate. The elevator stopped on the 30th floor. When the doors opened, Robert was greeted by a young secretary who had clearly been warned of his arrival. "Mr. Thompson?" she asked, trying to hide her surprise at seeing his simple clothes. "Dr. William is waiting for you in the conference room." Robert followed her down the luxurious hallway, noticing the changes that had been made over the years. There was too much marble, too much gold, too much excess. It wasn't like this when he ran the company. When he reached the conference room door, he took a deep breath. On the other side was William, his younger brother's son, the one who had taken control of everything when Robert decided to leave. The secretary knocked on the door and announced, "Dr. William, Mr. Robert Thompson has arrived." "Send him in," came the reply from inside. Robert opened the door and entered. The room was full. Besides William, there were several other executives, lawyers, and consultants. They all turned to look at the simple man who had just entered. William Thompson, a 55-year-old man impeccably dressed in an Italian suit, slowly rose from his chair. His eyes scanned Robert from head to toe before he spoke. "So it's true," said William, his voice filled with emotion. "After 40 years, you've actually returned." "Hello, William," Robert replied simply. "Uncle Robert," William approached, extending his hand. You're well?" "I am." Robert shook his nephew's hand. "And you? How's the family?" "Everyone's fine," William hesitated. "Uncle, I have to ask, why now? After all this time, why did you decide to come back?" Robert looked around the room, observing the curious faces of those present. "Perhaps it would be better if we spoke alone first." William motioned to the others. "You may leave. I'll call you in a few minutes." The executives left quietly, but it was obvious they were eager to know what was happening. When the door closed, William and Robert were alone for the first time in 40 years. "Sit," said William, indicating a chair. "Would you like anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water is fine," replied Robert, sitting down. William poured a glass of water and sat across from his uncle. The silence stretched for a few moments before William spoke. "Uncle, I know you must have your reasons for disappearing. Dad never wanted to talk about it. He always said you made the right choice, but never explained what that meant." "Your father was a good man," said Robert. "Better than me in many ways. But you were the oldest. The company was rightfully yours. Why did you—" "William," interrupted Robert gently, "I didn't come here to talk about the past. I came because I heard the company is having problems." William's face closed off. He stood up and went to the window, looking at the city below. "Problems is an understatement," he admitted, his voice heavy with frustration. "We're practically bankrupt. I don't know what to do anymore." "How did this happen?" William returned to the desk, running his hands through his hair. "It was a combination of things. Bad investments, the economic crisis, unfair competition, and maybe," he paused, looking directly at Robert, "maybe I'm not as good at this as I thought." "You're smart, William. Always have been. The problem isn't your ability." "Then what is it?" Robert took a sip of water before answering. "You forgot why the company exists." "What do you mean?" "When I founded Thompson & Associates, it wasn't to get rich. It was to help people. Build hospitals, schools, provide jobs. The money was a consequence, not the goal." William sighed. "Uncle, that's very noble, but the world has changed. Today it's about competitiveness, about maximizing profits, about forgetting the people," Robert completed. "It's not exactly like that." "William, I have detailed reports from the last 5 years. I know how many employees were laid off. I know how many social projects were cancelled. I know about the $1 million bonuses for executives while families lost their jobs." William turned pale. "How do you—" "I still have friends in this company, people who believe in what we built." "You were spying on me?" "I was keeping myself informed. It's different." William stood up again, agitated. "Uncle, you don't understand. The market has changed. If we don't follow these rules, we go broke. And look where we are even following them." "Exactly where I imagined you would end up." Robert's words landed like a bomb in the room. William turned around, indignant. "You imagined? You mean you knew this would happen and did nothing?" "William, I tried to warn you many times. I sent letters, messages through trusted people. You never wanted to listen. What letters? What messages? I never received anything. Robert sighed sadly. Then someone intercepted my messages. Who would do that? Someone who didn't want me to come back. Someone who benefited from my absence. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. William stopped pacing the room and stared intently at his uncle. Are you suggesting that someone in the company sabotaged our communications? I'm not suggesting, I'm stating it. But who and why? Robert stood up and went to a briefcase he had brought with him. William hadn't noticed it before. He had been so focused on the reunion that he hadn't paid attention to his uncle's few belongings. William, what do you know about the reasons for my departure? Dad always said you had fallen in love with an employee and preferred to leave everything to be with her, that it was a matter of honor. Did your mother agree with that version? William hesitated. Mom always said there was more to it, but she never wanted to go into details. Your mother was right, there was much more involved. Robert opened the briefcase and took out some old documents. William, do you know how much the company was worth when I left? Not exactly, but Dad said we were very prosperous. Prosperous is an understatement. We were the second largest construction company in the country. We had contracts to build 3 hospitals, 2 universities, and a housing complex for low-income families. And what happened to those projects? They were cancelled a week after my departure. William sat down heavily. Cancelled? Why? Officially due to lack of financial viability, in reality because someone sold contracts to competing companies for well below market value. But that's sabotage. Exactly. William picked up the documents Robert had placed on the table. They were old contracts, correspondence, financial reports. Uncle, I don't understand. If you knew this, why didn't you come back? Why didn't you report it? Because the person responsible for the sabotage was someone I trusted completely. Who? Robert hesitated. This was the hardest part of the whole story. William, did you know my personal secretary, Margaret Williams? Mrs. Margaret? Of course. She worked for the family for almost 20 years. I always heard my parents speak of her very fondly. Margaret was more than a secretary. She was my advisor, my friend, practically a sister to me. I trusted her more than anyone else. And she had been selling confidential information to our competitors for at least 3 years before I left. William was shocked. But why? Mrs. Margaret always seemed so loyal. Margaret had a daughter with serious health problems. The treatment cost a fortune. The competitors found out and blackmailed her. They started by paying for her daughter's treatment, then offered a fortune in exchange for information. My God. When I found out, Margaret came to me desperate. She confessed everything, cried, begged for forgiveness. She said she had tried to stop several times, but they threatened to cut off her daughter's treatment. William was slowly processing the information. And you forgave her? More than that, I took on the responsibility for her daughter's treatment and offered her a sum of money so she could start over somewhere else. And in return? In return, she gave me all the documents that proved the sabotage scheme. Names, amounts, dates, everything. Why didn't you use this against those responsible? Robert sighed deeply. Because when I analyzed the documents, I discovered something much worse. What? William, among the names of people receiving money from the competitors to pass on information, was someone very close to the family. William's blood ran cold. Who? Your older brother, Michael. William was silent for several minutes. Michael was his older brother who had lost his life in a car accident 2 years after Robert left. He was always considered the exemplary son of the family. That's impossible, murmured William. Michael loved the company. He loved the family. Michael was drowning in gambling debts. He owed money to some very dangerous people. When the competitors found out, they offered him a way out. Are you sure about this? Robert took more documents out of the folder. Margaret kept everything. Bank deposits, recorded conversations, emails. Michael had been passing confidential information for over a year. William took the documents with trembling hands. There it all was, bank statements showing large deposits into Michael's account, correspondence where he passed on information about bids and company strategies. Why did you never tell my father this? William, imagine the situation. How could I go to your father and tell him that his eldest son was betraying the family, that he was responsible for millions in losses, that he was putting hundreds of jobs at risk? But he deserved to know the truth. And then what? Would your father sue his own son? Would he have Michael arrested? Or would he try to protect him, destroying the family in the process? William began to understand the complexity of the situation. So you chose to leave to protect the family? I pretended I had fallen in love with an employee and that I was leaving everything for love. I let everyone think I had lost my mind. It was easier than destroying the image your father had of his son. And the employee? Did she really exist? Robert smiled for the first time since he had arrived. Yes, she did. Sarah was a nurse at the hospital we funded, an incredible woman who truly changed my life. Did you get married? We married 6 months after I left New York City. We had a daughter, Sarah Jane. We lived 40 very happy years in the countryside. William was moved. Uncle, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you went through, for carrying this burden alone. William, I didn't come here to dig up the past. I came because the company is in danger again, and this time I can't just sit idly by. What do you mean? I have information that you are negotiating the sale of all assets to an international group. William turned pale. How did you? That's confidential. Only me and 3 other people know about these negotiations. One of those 3 people is keeping me informed. Who? That doesn't matter now. What matters is that you are about to make the same mistake Michael made. It's not the same thing. I'm not betraying anyone. I'm trying to save what's left of the company. By selling to whom, William? To Atlantic Construction Corp. They offered a fair price for our assets. Robert shook his head sadly. William, Atlantic Construction Corp is one of the same companies that bought our contracts 40 years ago. What? They are finishing the job they started 4 decades ago, to completely destroy Thompson and Associates. William stood up abruptly. That can't be true. They presented a solid business plan, guaranteed they would keep some of the employee. William, have you signed anything? Not yet. We have a final meeting tomorrow. Then there's still time. William ran his hands over his face, clearly desperate. Uncle, even if all this is true, what's the alternative? We don't have the money to keep operating. In 3 months, we'll be officially bankrupt. What if I told you there is an alternative? What alternative? Robert stood up and went to the window, looking out at the city. William, do you know what my current net worth is? I have no idea. I assumed you lived a simple life in the countryside. I lived a simple life, but not a poor one. During those 40 years, Sarah and I built a network of agricultural cooperatives that became one of the largest in the country. William looked at him, surprised. Agricultural cooperatives? We started with small rural producers, teaching modern farming techniques, helping with financing, creating a fair distribution network. Today, we have over 10,000 associated families. And that makes money? Enough to buy 3 companies the size of Thompson and Associates. William nearly fell out of his chair. Are you saying you have the money to save the company? I'm saying I have the money to transform the company into what it always should have been. How so? Robert returned to the table and took more documents from his briefcase. William, what if instead of selling to Atlantic Construction Corp. SE, we turned Thompson and Associates into a cooperative? A cooperative? Imagine the employees would be partners. They would share in the profits. They would have a voice in decisions. Projects would focus again on social constructions, hospitals, schools, affordable housing. William was processing the idea. Would that work? It's been working for 40 years in my rural cooperatives. People work better when they know they are building something for themselves, not just to make the bosses rich. But the costs? William, how much do you spend per year on executive bonuses? About 15 million. And how much do you spend on social programs for employees? William hesitated. Virtually nothing. See, you're spending 15 million to keep half a dozen people happy, and 0 to take care of the hundreds of families who actually make the company run. William began to see the logic behind the proposal. Uncle, this is revolutionary. It's not revolutionary, it's just fair. At that moment, the office door opened and the secretary entered, looking nervous. "Dr. William, sorry to interrupt, but there are some people here insisting on speaking with you. They say it's urgent." "Who are they?" "A lawyer from Atlantic Construction Corp. And, she hesitated, "your wife." William and Robert exchanged glances. The arrival of Jennifer, William's wife, was unexpected. "Send them in," said William. 3 people entered the room. A man in an expensive suit who was clearly the lawyer, and Jennifer Thompson, an elegant woman around 50 years old, accompanied by a young woman William didn't recognize. "Jennifer?" William was surprised. "What are you doing here?" Jennifer looked nervously at Robert, clearly recognizing him despite his simple clothes. "William, I need to talk to you. It's about the sale of the company." The lawyer stepped forward. "Dr. William, I'm Dr. Stephen Roberts, legal representative of Atlantic Construction Corp. We came because our meeting tomorrow needed to be moved up. We have a proposal that can't wait." "What kind of proposal?" asked William. "A better proposal. We're willing to increase the purchase price by 30%, but we need an answer today." Robert watched the scene in silence. That sudden pressure confirmed his suspicions about Atlantic Construction Corp's true intentions. "Why the rush?" asked William. "We have other investors interested in your assets. If we wait until tomorrow, we might miss the opportunity." Jennifer approached her husband. "William, can we talk in private?" "Jennifer, this is my uncle Robert. He's back after 40 years. Jennifer looked at Robert with an expression William couldn't decipher. "I know who he is," she said quietly. "How do you know?" William was confused. Jennifer took a deep breath. "William, there are some things you need to know, things I should have told you a long time ago." The lawyer from Atlantic Construction Corp was growing impatient. "Dr. William, we really do need an answer today. If you want to talk as a family, I can come back in an hour." "No," said Robert, speaking for the first time since the visitors arrived. "I think we all need to hear what Jennifer has to say." Jennifer looked at her brother-in-law with gratitude. "William, do you remember that 2 years ago I started receiving anonymous letters?" "I remember. You said someone was trying to blackmail you." "I lied. The letters weren't blackmail, they were warnings." "Warnings about what?" Jennifer looked at the young woman accompanying her. "Sarah Jane, introduce yourself." The young woman stepped forward. "Hello, Uncle William. I'm Sarah Jane Thompson, Uncle Robert's daughter." William was speechless. He looked at Robert, who nodded in confirmation. "The letters were from her?" asked William. "They were mine," confirmed Sarah Jane. 2 years ago, I started investigating the situation with the family business. I discovered things that couldn't remain hidden." The lawyer from Atlantic Construction Corp was clearly uncomfortable with where the conversation was heading. "Doctor, William, perhaps it would be better if I came back another day." "No," said William firmly. "Stay. I think we all need to hear this." Sarah Jane opened a folder she was carrying. "Uncle William, do you know who really controls Atlantic Construction Corp? I know it's a solid business group. It's a group formed by the same people who sabotaged our company 40 years ago." The lawyer paled. "That's a very serious accusation, miss." "Doctor," corrected Sarah Jane. "I'm a prosecutor specializing in financial crimes." The silence in the room was deafening. William looked at the lawyer, who was visibly nervous. "Is it true?" asked William. "Doctor, William, these are just conspiracy theories." Dr. Roberts interrupted Sarah Jane, pulling documents from her briefcase. "Would you care to explain why your company made regular deposits into Michael Thompson's personal account between 1982 and 1984? The attorney turned pale as a sheet. That was a long time ago. And would you like to explain why the same deposit patterns appeared in Margaret Williams's account during the same period?" Robert smiled proudly at his daughter. Sarah Jane had done the investigative work he hadn't had the courage to do 40 years earlier. "Sarah Jane," said William, impressed, "how did you get this information?" "Dad told me the story a few years back. I decided to investigate on my own. What I found was a corruption network that lasted decades." Jennifer approached her husband. "William, 2 years ago, Sarah Jane came to me. She showed evidence that Atlantic Construction Corp was planning to slowly destroy our company. that they'd been manipulating bids, spreading rumors about our financial situation, sabotaging our contracts. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because, said Sarah Jane, we needed more evidence, and because we knew you'd never believe it without conclusive proof. The attorney tried to leave discreetly, but Robert blocked his path. Dr. Roberts, wouldn't it be better to stay and clear things up? I'm not obligated to. No, you're not, Sarah Jane agreed, but you'll want to hear our proposal before leaving. What proposal? The proposal is simple, said Robert. Your company stops pursuing ours, and we don't turn all this evidence over to the district attorney's office. This is blackmail. No, corrected Sarah Jane. This is justice. You've pursued our family for 40 years, destroyed lives, caused unnecessary suffering. Now you have a chance to stop it without legal consequences. William was processing everything he'd heard. So the company crisis wasn't accidental. The crisis was manufactured, confirmed Jennifer. They've been sabotaging our contracts for years, William. Whenever we won an important bid, something would go wrong. Whenever we made an investment, unexpected problems would appear. And I never noticed. How could you have noticed? Said Robert gently. They were very careful, very patient. The attorney from Atlantic Construction Corp. Tutters was sweating bullets. Look, this is all a misunderstanding. Our company is reputable. Our proposal is legitimate. Dr. Roberts, interrupted Sarah Jane, do you have children? I do, but I don't see the relevance. Imagine if someone spent 40 years trying to destroy your children's future. How would that make you feel? The man didn't respond. That's our situation, continued Sarah Jane. You're not just attacking a company, you're attacking a family. William stood and went to the window, trying to process everything he'd discovered. Robert, he said without turning around, your proposal to turn the company into a cooperative, is it still on the table? It is, replied Robert. And do you really have the resources for it? I do, and I have something more important than money. What? I have a plan to make Thompson & Associates not just sustainable, but prosperous again. William turned to the group. Dr. Roberts, I believe our meeting is over. Tell your superiors we have no interest in selling to you. Dr. William, this is a mistake. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, said William firmly, is not discovering the truth sooner. The attorney left the room visibly irritated. When the door closed, William addressed the family. Jennifer, why didn't you tell me about the letters? Because I wanted to protect you, and because, she hesitated, because I was afraid you'd think I was losing my mind. Sarah Jane, William addressed his niece, you investigated our company for 2 years without telling us. Uncle William, I'm a prosecutor. I couldn't reveal an ongoing investigation, not even to family. And now? Now we have enough evidence to sue Atlantic Construction Corp. But Daddy is right. Maybe it's better to give them a chance to stop on their own. Robert approached his nephew. William, I know this is a lot to take in at once. You need time to process all this. Uncle, your cooperative proposal, how would that work exactly? Have a seat and I'll explain. The four settled around the conference table. William, began Robert, do you know the longest-serving employees at the company? I know most of them. Are they good professionals? The best I've ever seen. Then why don't they share in the profits of the company they help build? William thought for a moment. Because that's how it's always been. Employees get salaries, owners keep the profits. What if we changed that? What if the employees were also owners? How would that work in practice? Sarah Jane leaned forward. Uncle William, I can explain the legal part. We'd transform Thompson & Associates into a worker cooperative. Each employee would become a member with voting rights on important decisions and profit sharing. And who would be in charge? There would be a board elected by the employees themselves, explained Robert. Democratic, transparent. What about investments? Where would money for projects come from? Part would come from the rural cooperatives I manage, said Robert. Part would come from bank loans that would be easier to get with our new structure. Why would they be easier? Because cooperatives have much lower default rates than traditional companies, explained Sarah Jane. Banks know this. Jennifer, who had remained silent, finally spoke. William, I think we should try. Jennifer, William, our company is failing. We've lost contracts, we've lost employees, we've lost the market's respect. What do we have to lose by trying something new? What if it doesn't work? If it doesn't work, said Robert, you'll be in the same situation you're in today. But at least you'll have tried something honorable. William remained silent for several minutes, considering the proposal. How many employees do we have currently? He asked. 230, replied Jennifer. And how many did we have 5 years ago? Almost 600. See, said Robert, you've already lost more than half your workforce. Those who remain are the most loyal, those who truly believe in the company. That's true, William agreed. Many stayed even without any prospect of improvement. Then let's give them prospects, suggested Sarah Jane. William stood up and paced the room again. Uncle Robert, if we do this, how long until we see results? William, results in cooperatives come quickly. In 6 months, you'd see a difference in productivity. In a year, in profitability. How can you be so sure? Because I've seen it happen dozens of times in rural cooperatives. When people work for themselves, everything changes. Jennifer stood and approached her husband. William, how long has it been since you've seen our employees smile? How long since you've heard anyone speak well of our company? William reflected on the question. It was true. The atmosphere at the company had become heavy, demoralizing. And the clients? Asked William. How would they react to this change? William, said Robert, do you think clients care about the company's administrative structure or about the quality of work? The quality. Then what's the problem? If we improve the quality of work, clients will be more satisfied. Sarah Jane added, Uncle William, cooperatives have a very positive image in society. Many clients would prefer to hire a cooperative rather than a traditional company. Why? Because cooperatives represent values like social justice, sustainability, community responsibility. Values that are becoming increasingly important to consumers. William was starting to be convinced. And the legal aspects. How long would the transition take? About 3 months, replied Sarah Jane. I would coordinate the entire legal process. No costs. William, said Robert with a smile, she's family. For a few minutes the room was silent. William was clearly wrestling with the decision. Uncle, he said finally, do you really believe this can work? William, I don't believe, I know it can work. How can you be so sure? Because it already worked for me. 40 years ago, I transformed my life by making choices based on people, not money. I never regretted it. Jennifer took her husband's hand. William, what do we have to lose? William looked at his wife, then at his uncle, then at the niece he barely knew, but who had dedicated 2 years of her life to protecting the family. All right, he said finally. Let's try. Robert smiled and stood up to hug his nephew. William, you won't regret it. I hope not. Now, how do we start? Sarah Jane opened her briefcase again. First, we need to talk to the employees. Explain the situation, listen to opinions, see who wants to join the cooperative. And if someone doesn't want to? Asked Jennifer. We offer fair compensation to those who prefer to leave, said Robert. No one should be forced to participate. And then we start the restructuring, new projects, new partnerships, a new way of working. William was excited now. What kind of projects? William, said Robert, do you know how many families in New York City need decent housing? Many? And do you know how much the government is willing to pay for those who build quality, affordable housing? Not exactly. A lot of money, William, a lot of money. Sarah Jane added, Uncle William, cooperatives have preference in public bids. It's the law. You mean we would have an advantage in public tenders? Exactly, confirmed Robert. Jennifer was thrilled. William, this means we could go back to doing what we always did best, building for people who really need it. That's true, agreed William. We were always good at social projects. Because you never lost heart, said Robert. You lost your way, but not your heart. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. At that moment, The secretary knocked on the door again. "Dr. William? Patricia from cleaning asked to speak with you. She said it's about Mr. Robert." "Send her in," said William. Patricia entered the room carrying an old box. "Mr. Robert," she said, emotional, "I kept this all these years waiting for you to come back." "What is it, Patricia?" "They're the letters you sent to Dr. William. All the letters that were intercepted." William looked surprised. "What letters?" Patricia placed the box on the table. "Doctor, William, your uncle sent you letters for 15 years. They were all intercepted by order of Dr. Richard." "Dr. Richard?" William was confused. "Which Dr. Richard?" "Dr. Richard Miller, the former financial director," explained Patricia. "He gave orders that all mail addressed to you should go through him first." Robert opened the box. There were dozens of letters, all sealed. "William," said Robert, "these letters contain all the warnings I tried to send you over the years. Alerts about Atlantic Construction Corp, suggestions to improve the company, offers of help." William picked up one of the letters and opened it. It was dated 10 years ago. "Dear William," he read aloud, "I heard the company is having difficulties with the Mercy Hospital contract. If you need help, I'm available. I have contacts who can resolve the situation quickly." William picked up another letter. "William, I received information that Atlantic Construction Corp is trying to sabotage the Lincoln Public School bidding. Be careful with Engineer Davis. He's not trustworthy." Jennifer was reading another letter. "William, look at this one. My dear nephew, I know you're doing the best you can, but perhaps it's time we consider a partnership. I can invest in the company without wanting control. I just want to help the family." William sat down heavily. 15 years. 15 years receiving offers of help, and I never knew. "Dr. William," said Patricia, "Dr. Richard always said the letters were from people trying to take advantage of the family, that it was better for you not to worry about it." "Where is Dr. Richard now?" asked Sarah Jane. "He retired 3 years ago," replied William. "He received a generous settlement and disappeared." "William," said Robert softly, "Dr. Richard worked for Atlantic Construction Corp. He was their informant inside our company." William ran his hands over his face. "So all these years while I was fighting to save the company, there was someone inside it working to destroy it?" "Unfortunately, yes." Jennifer picked up another letter and read it silently. Suddenly, she began to cry. "Jennifer," William approached. "What is it?" "William," she showed the letter. "If you ever need me for something serious, really serious, there's a trusted person who can find me. Patricia from cleaning knows how to contact me." William looked at Patricia. "You always knew how to find my uncle?" "Always, Dr. William. Mr. Robert left a phone with me before leaving. He said it was for emergencies." "Why did you never tell me?" "Because he asked me to only contact him if the family was in real danger. He didn't want to disrupt your lives." William turned to Robert. "Uncle, did you wait 40 years for us to need you?" "William, that's what family is. We may be far away, we may be fighting, there may be misunderstandings. But when someone in the family needs help, we show up." Sarah Jane, who had been silently observing the scene, finally spoke. "Uncle William, now do you understand why Daddy came back? It wasn't for money. It wasn't for power. It was for family." William hugged his uncle, emotional. "Uncle Robert, I'm sorry for everything that happened, for all the lost years." "William, we lost nothing. We gained experience. We gained wisdom. And now we can use all of that to rebuild something better." Jennifer approached Robert. "Brother-in-law, I want to apologize too. I should have looked for you years ago." "Jennifer, you took good care of the family, raised an honorable son, kept the company alive against all odds. You have nothing to apologize for." Patricia, who watched the scene emotionally, finally spoke. "Mr. Robert, may I ask a question?" "Of course, Patricia. Mrs. Sarah, your wife, how is she?" Robert smiled sadly. "Sarah passed away 6 months ago, Patricia. That's why I decided to come back. She always said when the time came I should return to take care of the family." Silence filled the room. William approached his uncle. "Uncle, I'm so sorry. I didn't even know you had lost your wife." Sarah lived a full and happy life. She knew this day would come and prepared me for it. Sarah Jane took her father's hand. Dad always said that Mom used to tell him, "One day you'll have to choose between living in the past and building the future. When that day comes, choose the future." "And that's what we're doing here," said Robert. "Building the future." William stood up. "Then let's get started. Patricia, can you gather all the employees in the conference room? We want to talk to them. Right now, Dr. William. Right now, there's no use putting it off any longer." Patricia hurried out to organize the meeting. Within minutes, the 230 employees of Thompson & Associates were gathered in the largest conference room in the building. William addressed the group. "Everyone, I want to introduce you to someone very special. This is my uncle Robert Thompson, founder of this company." A murmur went through the room. Many of the older employees recognized Robert, even after 40 years. "Mr. Robert," someone shouted from the back of the room, "you came back." "Yes, I'm back," Robert replied, emotional. "And I came back with a proposal for you." William explained the company's situation, the attempted sale, and the proposal to turn it into a cooperative. When he finished, the room was completely silent. One of the senior engineers raised his hand. "Dr. William, does that mean we would own the company?" "Yes," replied Sarah Jane. "Each of you would be a co-op member with equal rights and responsibilities." An accounting employee asked, "What if someone doesn't want to participate?" "No one is forced," said Robert. "Those who prefer to leave will receive fair compensation and all our recommendations to find a new job." One of the construction foremen stood up. "Mr. Robert, with all due respect, do co-ops make money? Because we have families to support." "Jack," Robert remembered his name, "in my rural co-ops, members earn on average 40% more than they would as employees of private companies. How is that possible? Because we don't have to pay million-dollar bonuses to executives. We don't have to distribute profits to shareholders who don't work. All the money stays with those who actually produce." The receptionist raised her hand. "And decisions? How would they be made?" "Democratically," explained Sarah Jane. "There would be monthly meetings where everyone could give their opinions about the company's direction." "And what if someone disagrees with the decisions?" "The system is democratic," said William. "The majority decides, but everyone has the right to express their opinions." One of the safety technicians asked, "Dr. William, do you really believe this can work?" William looked at his uncle before answering. "Tyler, a week ago I thought our only way out was to sell the company. Today I discovered that our true way out is to transform it. If you're in, I'm in too." Patricia stood up at the back of the room. "Everyone, I've worked here for 30 years. I've seen this company at its best and at its worst. I can tell you, if Mr. Robert is proposing this, it's because it's going to work. He has never let anyone down." One by one, the employees began to speak up, first timidly, then with more enthusiasm. Within half an hour, it was clear that the vast majority supported the idea. "Then it's decided," said William. "We're going to turn Thompson & Associates into a cooperative." The applause was deafening. Many employees approached Robert to congratulate him and thank him for coming back. In the following days, the transformation began quickly. Sarah Jane coordinated all the legal aspects, while Robert and William worked together on the administrative restructuring. The news of Robert Thompson's return and the company's transformation spread quickly through the construction industry. Some competitors became worried, others curious. Atlantic Construction Corp tried one last dirty trick. They spread rumors that Thompson & Associates was being run by a senile old man and would soon go bankrupt for good. But the strategy backfired when Sarah Jane publicly released the evidence of sabotage she had collected. The first project of the new cooperative was the construction of a housing complex for low-income families. The contract, won through a public bidding process, was worth 15 million reais. "William," said Robert when they signed the contract, "do you feel the difference?" "What difference?" "The atmosphere in the company. People are different." William looked around. It was true, the employees seemed more motivated, happier, more engaged with their work. "It's because now they know they're building for themselves," explained Sarah Jane. The housing project was completed 2 months ahead of schedule, with quality exceeding what was required in the contract. The cooperative received a 2 million raise bonus for the excellence of their work. "Everyone," said William at the monthly meeting. "This bonus will be distributed among all cooperative members, proportional to each one's share." The applause was warm. For the first time in years, the employees of Thompson and Associates saw extra money in their paychecks. 6 months after the transformation, the cooperative had secured 3 important new contracts and increased its revenue by 60%. More importantly, no employee had resigned, and the list of people wanting to work at the company grew daily. "Uncle," said William one afternoon as they watched the activity in the office, "how did you know it would work?" "William, I didn't know. I believed." "What's the difference?" "Knowing is based on facts. Believing is based on values, and values never fail when applied with sincerity." Jennifer approached the two. "Did you see the news report in the paper?" "What report?" asked William. "About Atlantic Construction Corp. They're being investigated by the district attorney's office for forming a cartel and commercial sabotage. Sarah Jane had kept her word. When Atlantic Construction Corp refused to stop their predatory practices, she turned over all the evidence to the proper authorities." "And Dr. Richard?" asked Robert. "He's under investigation too. It seems he embezzled much more money than we thought." William shook his head. "To think that for years I trusted him." "William," said Robert, "don't blame yourself. People like Dr. Richard are very skilled at gaining trust. The important thing is that we discovered the truth in time." 1 year after the transformation, Thompson and Associates Cooperative had become a national benchmark in social construction. They had built 2 hospitals, a school, and 3 housing complexes, all with exceptional quality and completed on time. The cooperative's revenue had tripled, and each member was earning on average 50% more than they had as employees. More importantly, the work environment had become an example of harmony and productivity. "Uncle Robert," said William one morning, "there's something I still don't understand." "What? Why didn't you come back earlier? If you knew we could transform the company, why did you wait so long?" Robert smiled. "William, some lessons can only be learned through hardship. If I had come back 5 years ago, would you have listened to me?" William thought for a moment. "Probably not. I thought I knew everything." "Exactly. You needed to discover on your own that the path you were following led nowhere. Only after that would you be open to hearing alternatives." "And what if you had been wrong? What if I had never learned?" "Then I would have lost a nephew, but I would have gained the peace of knowing I tried to do the right thing." Jennifer approached the two, carrying some papers. "William, the contracts for the new government project have arrived." "What project?" "The construction of the new hospital complex. If we win, it will be the largest contract in the company's history." William analyzed the documents. "The amount is impressive. But are we ready for a project of this size?" "William," said Robert, "you have the best professionals in the market, the best management system, and most importantly, you have motivated people. Of course you're ready." The bidding for the hospital complex was fierce. Major national construction companies participated, but Thompson and Associates Cooperative won with a proposal that combined technical quality, social responsibility, and competitive pricing. "Everyone," said William at the assembly announcing the victory, "we just won the largest contract in our history, $200 million to build a hospital complex that will serve 500,000 people." The room erupted in applause. It was the definitive confirmation that the transformation had been a complete success. "But," William continued, "with this success comes great responsibility. We will be building a hospital that will save lives. Every brick we lay, every screw we tighten, could make the difference between someone living or not." The silence in the room was respectful. Everyone understood the dimension of the project. "That's why," said Robert, standing up, "I want to propose something. Let's dedicate this project to the memory of Sarah, my wife, who always believed that true wealth lies in helping others. And let's also dedicate it," added Sarah Jane, "to all the employees who believed in the change when it seemed impossible." 2 years passed. The hospital complex was inaugurated 6 months ahead of schedule and with praise from all regulatory agencies. Thompson and Associates Cooperative had become the largest construction cooperative in the country. William, now with grayer hair but with a more constant smile, watched the activity in the office. There were over 1,000 cooperative members, all working with the same enthusiasm as the first 230 who took on the adventure. "Uncle," he said to Robert, who at 70 years old still came to the office daily, "you achieved what you wanted. The company is bigger and better than ever." "William, I didn't achieve anything. We achieved it." "But the idea was yours, and the idea was Sarah's, my wife. I just put it into practice." Sarah Jane approached the two, carrying an envelope. "Daddy, a letter arrived for you." Robert opened the envelope and smiled as he read. "What is it?" asked William. "It's from the Rural Producers Cooperative. They want to partner with us to build a food distribution center." "What kind of partnership?" "They supply organic products for the cafeterias at our construction sites, and we build their distribution center at no cost." William smiled. "Uncle, you never stop, do you?" "William, when you discover you can help people, it's impossible to stop." That afternoon, William went to the helipad, where everything had begun 3 years earlier. Tyler, the pilot who had mocked Robert on the first day, approached. "Dr. William, may I speak with you?" "Of course, Tyler." "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me for what?" "For giving me a second chance. For not firing me after what I did to Mr. Robert." William smiled. "Tyler, my uncle taught me one thing. Everyone deserves a second chance. What matters isn't the mistake we make, but what we do after recognizing the mistake." "Dr. William, may I ask a personal question?" "You may. Are you happy now?" William thought for a moment before answering. "Tyler, 3 years ago I thought happiness was having a lot of money in the bank. Today I've discovered that happiness is going to sleep, knowing that the work you did during the day improved someone's life." "And the company? Do you miss being the sole owner?" "Tyler, I've never been more of an owner of the company than I am today, because today I share ownership with people who truly make the company work." Jessica and Ashley, the two flight attendants who had also made fun of Robert, approached. "Dr. William," said Jessica, "we wanted to speak with Mr. Robert before he left today." "He's in the office. But may I ask why?" "We want to apologize," said Ashley. "Again. Girls, you've already apologized many times. My uncle forgave you on the very first day." "But we haven't been able to forgive ourselves," admitted Jessica. "How could we have treated such a good man that way?" William placed his hands on their shoulders. "Jessica, Ashley, do you want to know what my uncle told me about this story?" "What?" "He said you did him a favor." "How so?" "You reminded him of why he had left the company 40 years ago. And you reminded him of why it was important to come back. We don't understand. My uncle left the company because it had become a place where appearances mattered more than character. When you judged him by his simple clothes, you confirmed that the problem still existed. And that gave him the motivation to fix things." The two were silent for a moment. "Dr. William," said Ashley finally, "does Mr. Robert truly not hold a grudge?" "Ashley, my uncle taught me that holding a grudge is like carrying rocks in your backpack. It only makes the journey harder." At that moment, Robert appeared on the helipad. "William, I'm about to leave. Sarah Jane is waiting for me." "Uncle, Jessica and Ashley wanted to speak with you." The two approached, visibly emotional. "Mr. Robert," said Jessica, "we want to thank you." "Thank me for what?" "For teaching us a lesson we will never forget," said Ashley. "For showing us that true dignity has nothing to do with expensive clothes or social position." Robert smiled gently. "Girls, you learned it yourselves. I just helped open your eyes." "Mr. Robert," said Jessica, "may I ask a question?" "Of course." "How are you able to be so kind after everything you've been through?" Robert looked at the horizon before answering. "Jessica, life has taught me that kindness is not weakness. It is strength. Weak people seek revenge. Strong people forgive." "And how did you learn that?" "Through suffering. And through the love of a very wise woman who taught me that a heart that doesn't forgive is a heart that cannot be happy. Ashley wiped a tear from her face. Mr. Robert, you changed our lives. No, Ashley, you changed your own lives. You chose to learn from the mistake instead of hiding from it. Patricia appeared on the helipad, as always carrying her cleaning supplies. Mr. Robert, are you leaving? I am, Patricia, but I'll be back tomorrow. Mr. Robert, may I say something? Of course. These have been the 3 happiest years of my professional life. To see this company reborn, to see people smile again, it was like watching a miracle happen. Patricia, it wasn't a miracle. It was hard work and good-hearted people. Mr. Robert, you've always been very humble, but we all know. Without you, none of this would have happened. Robert hugged Patricia affectionately. Patricia, without you safeguarding the letters all these years, I never would have had the chance to fix things. You were as important as any of us. William watched the scene with emotion. In 3 years, he had seen his uncle transform not just a company, but dozens of individual lives. Uncle, said William when they were alone, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. What? Have you ever regretted anything in your life? Robert thought for a long moment. William, I regret not having come back sooner. Maybe I could have spared many people several years of suffering. But you said I wouldn't be ready to hear it. That's true, but perhaps I could have found a way to prepare you sooner. Uncle, can I say something? I think things happened at the right time. If you had come back earlier, maybe the transformation wouldn't have been so complete, so genuine. Why do you think that? Because if you had shown up when the company was still relatively well off, I might have accepted your help without truly understanding the need for change. The fact that we almost reached bankruptcy made me value every opportunity for a fresh start. Robert smiled. William, you've become a very wise man. I learned from the best teacher. The two walked toward the elevator. The sun was setting over New York City, and the city lights were beginning to turn on. Uncle, said William, do you know what the most important moment in this whole story was? What? When you decided to come back even knowing you would be humiliated, even knowing you might be rejected. That act of courage changed everything. William, I wasn't courageous, I was terrified. Then what was your motivation? The love I feel for this family, and the promise I made to Sarah before she left. What promise? I promised that I wouldn't let the family fall apart as long as I had the strength to prevent it. William stopped walking and hugged his uncle. Uncle Robert, thank you for not giving up on us. William, family never gives up on family. 6 months later, Thompson & Associates Cooperative received the National Award for Excellence in Social Responsibility. The ceremony was held in the same building where Robert had been humiliated 4 years earlier. During his acceptance speech, William told the whole story, from the arrival of the country bumpkin on the helipad to the complete transformation of the company. My uncle taught me, said William to an audience of over 1,000 business leaders, that true success isn't measured by what we accumulate, but by what we build. Not by what we keep, but by what we share. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Robert, sitting in the front row wearing his same old straw hat, cried with emotion. After the ceremony, several business leaders approached Robert wanting to learn details about the cooperative model. Mr. Thompson, said one of them, could you help us implement this system in our company? I can help, replied Robert, but under one condition. What? You have to be prepared to share not just the profits, but also the power. Many business leaders want the benefits of cooperatives, but don't want to give up absolute control. And is that essential? It's the heart of everything. If you don't trust people enough to share decisions with them, there's no point in sharing the profits. Sarah Jane approached the group. Daddy, it's time to go. We have a meeting with the rural producers early tomorrow morning. I'm coming, sweetheart. William said goodbye to his uncle at the helipad, as always. Uncle, are you happy? William, I'm at peace. And I've discovered that peace is much better than happiness. Why? Because happiness depends on circumstances. Peace depends only on you doing the right thing. And do you think we're doing the right thing? William, when 1,000 people have dignified work, when hundreds of families have their own homes, when hospitals are built with quality. How could that be wrong? The helicopter took off, carrying Robert back to the countryside. William watched until it disappeared over the horizon. Jennifer approached her husband. "What are you thinking about?" "About how a humble man, dressed in simple clothes, managed to change so many lives." "William, it wasn't the clothes that changed lives. It was the heart of the man inside them." "That's true. And to think we almost lost this opportunity because of pure prejudice. But we didn't, and that's what matters." William looked at his wife. "Jennifer, do you think we've managed to honor the trust my uncle placed in us?" "William, look around us. 1,000 families with decent jobs, social projects running smoothly, a company that's a national example. If that isn't honoring trust, I don't know what is." 10 years had passed since that day on the helipad. Thompson and Associates Cooperative had become an international reference in participatory management and social responsibility. Robert, now 78 years old, remained active in coordinating rural cooperatives and made regular visits to the family business. William had become a recognized speaker, telling the story of the company's transformation at events worldwide. Sarah Jane had left the district attorney's office to dedicate herself fully to cooperative law, helping other companies make the same transition. One September morning, William received a call that would change everything again. "William," it was Sarah Jane's voice, clearly emotional, "you need to come here right away." "What happened?" "It's Dad. He fainted during a meeting. He's in the hospital." William cancelled all his appointments and rushed to the countryside. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Sarah Jane crying in the waiting room. "How is he?" "Stable, but..." "William, the doctors said it was a heart attack, a serious one." "Can I see him?" "You can, but he's sedated." William entered the room and saw his uncle sleeping, connected to several machines. The man who had changed so many lives looked fragile, vulnerable. "Uncle," murmured William, holding Robert's hand, "you can't leave us now. We still have so much work ahead." To his surprise, Robert opened his eyes. "William, you came?" "Of course I came, Uncle. How are you feeling?" "Tired," admitted Robert with a weak smile. "Very tired." "Uncle, you're going to be fine. The doctors said it was a scare, but you'll recover." "William, I need to tell you something." "Go ahead." "If anything happens to me..." "Uncle, don't talk like that." "William, listen to me. If anything happens to me, do you promise you'll continue the work?" "Of course I promise, Uncle. And do you promise you'll never let the company go back to what it was before?" "I promise." "And do you promise you'll take care of Sarah Jane?" "Uncle, Sarah Jane is a strong woman. She knows how to take care of herself." "Promise?" "I promise." Robert closed his eyes, relieved. "Now I can rest." William stayed at the hospital for 3 days. Robert recovered well and was discharged with a recommendation for complete rest for at least a month. "Uncle," said William as they were leaving the hospital, "you gave me a terrible scare." "William, age is catching up. We need to be prepared." "Uncle, you're only 78. You still have a long life ahead." "I hope so, but if I don't, I want to know that everything we built will continue to exist." William stopped walking. "Uncle, can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." "Are you afraid of passing?" Robert smiled. "William, I'm not afraid. I'm grateful." "Grateful for what?" "For having had the chance to fix the mistakes of the past, for having seen our family united again, for having taken part in transforming so many lives." "Uncle, you know you're loved by hundreds of people, right?" "I know, and that's the greatest gift anyone can receive in life." 2 years later, on a sunny spring morning, Robert Thompson passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 80 years old and had left a legacy that would forever change the lives of thousands of people. The funeral was the largest ever seen in the region. Cooperative members, employees, business people, politicians, ordinary people who had been helped by Robert over the years, all came to say goodbye. William, in his farewell speech, summed up his uncle's life in one sentence: "Robert Thompson proved that true wealth isn't in what we accumulate, but in what we leave behind. End of story. So, what did you think of this incredible story of transformation and forgiveness? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Do you believe William made the right decision by accepting his uncle's proposal? Leave your honest opinion below. We love reading what you think. And if this story touched your heart like it touched ours, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.